Man, it's always fun to have our next guest back on the show. One of our favorites, the man who was the author of one of the most devastating pitches in baseball history, and now a guy who's apparently very high on the Orioles picking up Ryan Helsley, as I saw him tweet the following over the weekend. Really, really like this move. If he is close to 2022, 2025 St. Louis version, this is a great deal for the Orioles. Joining us now, he is Orioles legend, Mr. Zack Britton. He's back with us here on GCR. Zach, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on.
So, first of all, I just want to get caught up with you. Like, what's going on in your world? What are you up to these days? Like, are you just like fishing? Like, what does life have for you at this point?
Oh, man, I am packed. Schedule's packed with four kids.
Yeah.
They're getting older. The main reason why I decided to retire when I did. So just really busy with them, and then figured I'd throw some opinions out there on social media and see what happens. I've done some media, here and there, but been getting a lot of people asking me about certain things, so I figured might as well just share my opinion on my own social media
I
networks.
no, I dig it, man. I think it's awesome. I love that you're doing it. I was gonna say, like, are you the type that would rather be doing that from the comfort of your home than showing up to a game and putting on, like a polo with the team logo on it? Like, would you rather just be doing your own thing that way?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think since I decided to stop playing because the travel with the family, it's only been what 2 or 3 years since I stopped playing. So I think that the travel is difficult when you have a young family. Like I said, main reason why I decided to stop playing. So I'm not so sure that would go over so well
I wanted
with the
to.
family.
I mean, I can understand why, like, that. Maybe your wife would be like, "Yeah, we got 4 kids." Like, no, no.
Yeah, yeah, it's busy.
Have you talked to Buck at all about Craig Albernaz? Like, have you had a conversation with him? Because I think a lot of us, you never know when a new manager comes in if anybody's going to stay over from the staff. So I thought it was really cool that it worked out that way. Do you have any knowledge of Craig at all, and like any impressions that maybe Buck has passed along to you about what this might look like?
Yeah, I don't know him much. Just the name a little bit here and there. Um, I know my brother's had multiple conversations with him, especially now that his contract is finalized there as third base coach. But overall, I haven't really asked him too much. I'm sure they're talking a lot and trying to figure out this roster. And since I played, I understand like the dynamic of the team and the coaches, and I try to leave my brother alone when it comes to that stuff. And if he reaches out for advice or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then we talk. And as the season gets going, we communicate a lot more about the day-to-day things that are going on. But I know that he's introduced himself, spoken to Albernaz. I think they played against each other in the minors, so there's some
Okay.
history there, or coached or something like that. So I know that they've had at least some interaction prior to him getting the job.
Can you speak to why it's important for a new manager to try to retain some of this? Someone would say, "Well, hey, why wouldn't you just want that guy bringing in all of his own guys, right?" Like, can you speak to why it might be important to keep some of the staff from, a manager that you had thought you needed to fire the last time around?
Yeah, I think it depends on the environment that the coaches create. I think if you're a new manager, like your first managing gig, especially, you do want to have people around you that you're familiar and you're comfortable with, friends or people that maybe he's played with or coached with, throughout his career. When I'm talking about Albernaz, I think it's important because you want your message to be sent clearly. And sometimes, not all the time, but if you keep a lot of coaches from the previous staff, um, there might be mixed messages sent, and that's not what you want. But I think um, in my brother's situation, or anybody that they retain, if Drew French, a great
Yep.
example too. You also want to know, you talk to the players, right? When you get hired, and you're like, hey, like who are the guys you work well with? Like who do you appreciate as a coach? Who communicates well? Like who do you want to be around? Because ultimately, the players the buck stops with them at the end of the day. You need them to perform. The coaches only do so much. The manager can only do so much. The players have to play up to their potential. And, if you surround those guys with a good coaching staff, people that they like working with, people that are positive to them, then ultimately that's your goal as a manager coming in. And I think the people that they retained, I think if you talk to the players, there's a reason why they were retained. They like working with those guys. Like I said, as a former player, you knew the guys on the staff that you're like, man, I want this guy to stay around. Like I love working with them every single day. They bring up positive energy every day. They're even keel, through the ups and downs of a season. So it is important to keep those guys. But I don't think that you should just keep guys to keep guys.
This is my last one. Then we're going to talk about Ryan Helsley. A
Hmm.
lot of us thought the Orioles needed a manager with experience, with like real cachet. And admittedly, Zach, as you would imagine, we still have that like Buck Showalter showed up one day and winning and culture just sort of showed up with him. And it just felt like he carried that type of big stick. And we were all enamored by it and thinking that a team that has been close but took a step back could use that type of big stick manager. Can someone who's never managed before have that type of cachet? Can they walk in on day one and demand accountability and have that respect and reverence that a Buck Showalter seemed to have on day one when he showed up in Baltimore?
Absolutely. I think you've seen it around the game. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Aaron Boone is a good example with the Yankees. Went from playing to doing some media to managing. And beyond Buck Showalter, that was my only other manager. He had been
Mm-hmm.
managing the Yankees for a few years when I got traded. But, yeah, absolutely. A guy can come in. And, just because you haven't managed doesn't necessarily mean that you don't know what the job description is as a manager. I mean, Albernaz has, been a bench coach. He's seen it. He's managed, I'm sure, a handful of games when maybe Voit got ejected or something like that, right? Um, but ultimately, yes, I think you can walk into a room, you can expect accountability. You can hold the players to a certain standard if you've never managed. And my favorite thing, sometimes when people say, "Well, you lack experience," right? And in my head, I'm like, well, you only get experience if you get the opportunity to get experience, right? Like if I've never managed, is that my fault?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I just haven't had the chance. And I think that's the thing. Doesn't mean that he's not qualified. Doesn't mean he's not going to be a great manager. He just hadn't had the chance yet, and now he's got a chance. And I'm looking forward to see. He's got a great reputation throughout the game. A lot of people texted me when he got hired and was like, "Man, I think this is a really good move."
Hmm.
I think Mike Elias has got a good pulse on the players. Talking with his coaches and talking with the players. I think he's got a good pulse. And ultimately, they made this decision and. Like I said, I don't think you have to have an experienced manager. I think those days are gone where everyone assumed that if the guy hadn't managed for 5, 6, 7 years, that it was bad news. I just think that's not necessarily the fact or the case anymore.
He is Zack Britton. He is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. So, Zach, one of the reasons we called you is because I couldn't agree more with what you said about Ryan Helsley, and I think it's the way that a lot of us feel, right? Like you look at this and you say, "My God, if you can get the version of Ryan Helsley that we saw before he got to New York, this is exactly what the Orioles need with Felix Bautista's sideline." The problem being, do we know that we can get that guy? And so how do we make sense of what happened to Ryan Helsley in New York? And I know everybody talks about pitch tipping, but like why it would just suddenly show up then and wouldn't have showed up before. Like how do you make sense of what happened there and what version of Ryan Helsley the Orioles might be getting this season?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate question, right? I mean, it's not that they got him at, a big discount. 14 million for the closers is still top of the market. And he's got that opt out as well. So, if he does really well, you might only have him for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, for me, when you're looking at the guys that were available, and I was doing, a semi deep dive into the closers that were available, he popped up because I've seen him pitch in St. Louis, and Guy was one of the best closers in the game, not just National League, in the game. Electric stuff. And he was a guy that in my head, I'd mentioned on some other shows that I think this is a guy that could be comeback player of the year, reliever of the year. He has that potential. So I think it's a really good ad for the Orioles, considering Bautista's going to be out for you know, a significant part of the season. And you don't want to have to throw him right back into the fire when he comes back. You'd love to have Helsley doing what he's doing and Kit Ridge back there, and then you just bring in Bautista. Hopefully, you're making a playoff run, and you just reinforce your pen there. But when it comes to the struggles in New York, I mean, we can speculate all I want. I know from personal experience that getting traded, for me, and then watching other guys get traded to New York specifically, some guys just couldn't handle it. It's a different media, it's a different fan base. The expectations are absolutely through the roof, and the fans let you know more than anywhere when you're not performing up to your standard, or the standard that they expect of you. And it's a tough place if you start off slow to get to work your way out of it. And I've seen guys that were elite, went over to New York market, struggled, and just couldn't really right the ship. And then they left and they were elite again. So I'm not saying that's the situation, but it wouldn't surprise me. Now, when you talk about pitch tipping, unless I know what the heck it is,
Right.
it's hard for me to speak on it. Now, my honest opinion on pitch tipping, a lot of times when guys are struggling and you can't really figure it out, that's like the crutch nowadays.
Hmm.
I've heard more of pitch tipping than ever before when you have like an analytically based, front office. And a lot of times it's like, well, hey, we're watching so much video. Hey, like if this subtle movement, like they know what's coming. And you're like, there's no way. You talk to the hitters and they're like, there's no way I can pick that up. So pitch tipping, yeah, I take it with a grain of salt. I'm like,
That's interesting. Zach, that's really
and like,
interesting, right? Because I know that
yeah,
he said that he thought he was tipping his pitches, but like what you're saying is it's possible, not that obviously. This is
right.
not
Yeah, I
like
don't know.
Zack Britton breaking news, but
No,
like
right.
that it's possible that sometimes that's just what you go with because it's an easier way to explain your struggles
Yeah.
than just, no, I'm just getting my ass kicked right now.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, like there is people that I have played with that I could turn on the TV right now and I can tell that they're tipping. Like it's an obvious tip,
Hmm.
right? It's one that every single person in the game knows, every single team knows. If this guy does that, then this pitch is coming. It's just the way it is. Some guys do it. They have an obvious tip. I
What
don't know if he's one of those guys. I just know that he was in St. Louis. He was literally shoving, and you know, unless you can find an article where he's talking about tipping in St. Louis, then maybe it's
I
something.
I did
But
I did not find that for what it's worth,
the
but
the thing that the thing that I chuckle at
yeah.
is that, and fans might not see it, and the media might not. I mean, maybe they're aware of it, but everyone has the same video now and the same base of analytics. No one is like creating something new in that space anymore. Like we are all sharing the same data. We got the same video angles. Yeah, most of us, unless we're cheating, but most of us do, right? And so there's no surprises. Like you go to St. Louis, who is one of the best organizations out there in this, like especially analytics, video, all that kind of stuff, development.
Mhm.
If you're tipping, like they would have known it. You're not going to just go to the Mets and be like, "Hey, man, guess what? Like you were a huge tipper in St. Louis. They never caught it, but we did." So that's whatever. That's my long story on tipping. But I just think that maybe he just got off to a slow start, not a big deal. And I think the Orioles, by paying him 14 million a year, I think assume maybe the same thing that I'm saying is like, hey, is he what is he compared to what he was with the Mets and what he was in St. Louis? And even if he's like somewhere in between, he's still worth $14 million because the stuff that he was doing in St. Louis, I would say he's a little bit
Like a 19-20 million
more.
dollar
Yeah, I
closer,
think
right?
so.
Yeah.
But I think you just bet on the fact that he's somewhere in between. And even if he's that guy, he's still one of the best closers in that division, and he's really going to help that bullpen.
Would you be inclined to sign someone else to be like plan B? Would you given the struggles in New York, would you want to go into the season with a yes, it's definitely Ryan Helsley, but maybe we would be wise to have someone else in that bullpen who's closed games before in case Ryan Helsley isn't the best version of Ryan Helsley?
Yeah, I think you have to be cautiously optimistic on Helsley, right? When you go into spring, I think you'll see a lot in spring. I don't know what like type of spring he normally puts together. If he's one of those guys that he's not really working on a thing and he comes in, he's looking really good. It's hard to say. I think Kittredge is completely capable of closing games, in my opinion. Um, that being said, if Helsley's not doing what you want, then it does, the bullpen order, Aikens is solid. But yeah, it does,
No, and this
hopefully
became,
Cano.
right when they did this with Kimbrel 2 year or
Yeah.
last year, it became a bit of an issue for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean you're not wrong, right? It's you go into the year you expect, your bullpen order to be one way, and injuries and underperformance definitely throw you out of whack. And the more depth that you can have, the better you are. But I think in my head, it's like, where can we allocate the dollars? And that rotation really needs to improve, I think, for them to have any shot. You if you want to win, like a closer is the final piece to like a championship team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I honestly believe that you got to have your guy in the ninth for the most part. Like you see in the playoffs where the Dodgers went to starters and stuff like that. If you have those type of guys, but overall, you want to have your dude locking down the ninth, but you got to get to him,
Yep. Yep.
and you got to get to your late inning guys.
Yeah, there's
I,
way
I
more innings than the
yeah,
ninth inning during the course of
correct.
the year.
Yeah, you gotta have
Yeah.
they, trading Grayson
Yep.
for Ward, which I don't think was a bad move. A 36 homer guy in your lineup. I mean, just makes your offense a little bit better, a veteran guy too. But if you don't add, a top level starter or two, if you had a mid level and a top level starter, I think that's what you have to do, bare minimum. Um, and then I think you see where you are, and then you can add one of the relievers that are still going to probably hanging out there. There always is every offseason where, a pretty talented reliever's hanging out there. For some reason, his market just really hasn't materialized, and maybe you pounce there. But it wouldn't be like in the forefront of my mind right now that, hey, if Helsley doesn't perform, like we need to have a some protection there. I think, Cano is an interesting case for me.
Man,
It's like,
boy, I really wanted that to be the answer 2 years ago. It just,
yeah,
yeah, right. Like it just never worked. Let me run one by you because I think one of the names, and I promise I'll wrap with this because we could do this for 3 hours.
I know.
I want to. Tyler Wells is someone whose name comes up a lot in this conversation. And I think for a lot of people, it sort of reminds us of the Zack Britton conversation once upon a time. And it's not that we don't think he can be a starter, right? He came back and he started games last year, and he looked pretty good during the stretch when he came back. I think that you look at Tyler Wells and you see someone who might be a really dynamic, like game-changing, late-inning leverage type of reliever. As you just brought up, the Orioles have a starter problem until proven
Yep.
otherwise. How do you go about handling this when someone has the ability to start, but maybe could be a game changer for you as a leverage back end reliever?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a tough go, right? Unless you have like, right, you've signed two guys. Let's say two guys. I think it is two guys. I mean,
I
correct me
think
if
you're
I'm
right.
wrong. I think you need two
I
guys.
agree.
I don't think you need two aces. I think you need a top of the guy to
Mm-hmm.
slot in. I think Bradish is capable of being one of the better relievers, or excuse me, starters in the division. I think Rogers really opened eyes, and he was actually a guy I told my brother about. I'm like, man, when they traded for him, I'm like, I remember this guy as a rookie.
Hmm.
This guy was a beast, and
Mm-hmm.
if he gets to anywhere near that level again, he's going to be
So
special.
you don't
And
think that was like smoke and mirrors what we saw last year?
I think if you do it in the big leagues once, you're capable of doing it again.
Okay.
And that's my belief. The big leagues is too hard to fool somebody for a whole season. Now you see people that have these outstanding years and then maybe never duplicate them, but doesn't it could be for a variety of reasons. But I think if he pitched at such a high level, like an all-star level one year, like he's capable of doing that to some extent again. And it's just about like getting a guy back on track. And I think French did a great job, obviously, with him, and the organization did. So I think he's capable of being, somewhere slotted from a one to a three in your rotation, honestly. I don't think he's going to have under a 2 again. That's really
It's
difficult.
insane, isn't it?
But
By the way,
yeah,
until the last start, it was like a 1.35. By the way,
it was wild. It was wild. And his
nuts.
stuff, like, it's not that
Yeah.
he was smoking mirrors either. Like, he has, like, from the left side, he's top of the league stuff. So, with Tyler Wells, I think I mean, that's something that you would have to consider if you add rotation depth. And he has to want to do it too. He's got to be open to it because then obviously then you got a guy that's like, kind of whining out in the bullpen and, he wants to go back in the rotation. You don't want that. I will throw a guy that I watched a little bit in spring training, talked with a little bit, and watched during the season. And I thought he's got like a shot. He's interesting to me. Is Stroud. His cutter is nasty. If you look at like the metrics against that cutter, and I think for him it's more a command.
Yep.
But like I've seen it happen. Like a guy has an elite pitch, and you put him in the eighth, ninth inning, and he becomes a stud. You just get his confidence up, and maybe he fine tunes his command. But I think his cutter is one of those things that you identify as a guy that could be elite. And he has other pitches too. I'm not, discounting his other stuff, but the cutter for me, especially because the cutter eliminates both sides of the plate, your lefties and your righties, if you have a really good one. And that's what you want out of your ninth inning guy or a high leverage guy is the ability to eliminate, your bench options late in the game. Like they can't pick a lefty to eat him up. Like he can handle both sides.
He really impressed us. I think we all were like, this guy looks like a legitimate major league reliever as we saw him late in the season last year. We do a silly game on Wednesdays. It's Would You Rather Wednesday. Now that you're like semi-dipping your toes into media, I'm going to run by we do have one Orioles-related Would You Rather today. It's Would you rather the Orioles ship Kobe Mayo and Cade Povich to Milwaukee for 1 year of Freddie Peralta, or no, there's just no way you can do that? Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, here you go. I got my answer. So I would say yes.
Okay.
Currently.
Yep.
I would say right now.
If they were to go get 2 more pitchers, then obviously you don't need to do that.
Right. Right now, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Because this is my thought. This is just me talking, nothing else. That window right now with the Gunners, Westbergs, Jackson Holiday, it's not a big window, right? If you lock Gunner into an extension, yes.
Changes everything.
The window extends. But the window is pretty tight right now because the odds of Gunner taking a discounted deal after last year are still very slim. The guys, I feel like his market starts at Bobby Witt money. And so unless you're willing to do that, there's a good chance Gunner's playing another uniform. We saw with Manny Machado. Yep. I watched different ownership. I think this ownership probably would have locked down a Manny Machado. But Gunner's in that same world, I think.
And he's a Boris guy.
And he's Scott. I know exactly how Scott's thinking here.
Yep.
And unless you I feel like unless it's Bobby Witt money, then you're going to have to compete against the other teams in free agency. So that being said, yes, I would get a Peralta because I think the next 2 years are super important to try to see if this is a World Series team and push the envelope there. So, yeah, like as of now, I would say yes.
At Z Britton, that's how you follow him. Are we going to be seeing you? Like, are you going to be doing the spring training thing again? Are you?
I'm open to all things.
Okay. All right. He's available.
Maybe,
He's available. Give him a call. We'll
yeah,
see.
exactly. I'm here.
Right.
Schedule's pretty light when it comes to that stuff right now.
Zach, it's awesome to catch up with you, man. Always appreciate it. As you know, one of my favorite moments ever as an Orioles fan was watching you hit a home run in Atlanta. I'll never forget it.
That was a good one.
The conversation we had afterwards. Appreciate you, brother. Let's do this again real soon, all right?
All right, thanks for having me on.